My name is Margie O'Driscoll, and I'm the competition advisor for the Architecture at Zero competition. The Architecture at Zero competition is a project of the American Institute of Architects for the state of California, and it is supported by 4 utilities in the state of California: Southern California Edison, PG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, and SoCal Gas. These utilities and others in the state of California are deeply concerned about climate change and are seeking ways to decarbonize our future. And that is why they support this competition. The competition site this year is in Visalia, California, the heart of the Central Valley, one of the most important agricultural regions in the United States and indeed the world. The competition itself focuses on decarbonization, equity, and resilience. The other thing that's important to know about this competition is that we have a real site, which is under the control of Self-Help Enterprises, who has a real intention of building affordable housing, that's housing for low-income people, on this particular piece of property. So today we have the privilege of talking with Tom Kalishaw, one of the most respected nonprofit leaders in the Central Valley, ergo the state of California. We're deeply appreciative of him spending the time with us to tell us a little bit about the work of Self-Help Enterprises, as well as their commitment to decarbonization, a decarbonization future for the state of California. So with that, Tom, can you tell us a little bit about Self-Help Enterprises?
Sure. Yeah, Self-Help Enterprises is a nonprofit organization that was incorporated in 1965 with a mission to build and sustain low-income communities in the San Joaquin Valley. We were actually organized around a concept of mutual self-help housing where families, mostly farm worker families, build their first home by working collectively with a group of their neighbors with our help. That was where we started. And so that's where our working together and collaboration approach comes from. We started out by working with farm workers. We've expanded our efforts to include affordable rental housing development and preservation, also additional infrastructure work in some of the smallest rural communities, most of which are populated by farm workers, and also a variety of other efforts, including most recently work around the drought, the ongoing drought in California. We're the folks that people call so that we can put a temporary tank or help them drill a new well in these small communities. So all told, we've worked to rehabilitate or create over 15,000 affordable housing opportunities for people around the valley. And those have been, a preponderance of those have been folks who have worked in agriculture.
The term affordable housing is a term that people in California know and understand because most of the state is unaffordable, which means that people can't afford to live here unless they make very high salaries. Can you talk a little bit about what affordable housing might be? It's in other communities called social housing, for example.
Yeah, well, in California and generally in the United States, we call affordable housing that which someone pays no more than 30% of their income for, whether it's a rental unit or whether it's a home that they're paying monthly for. But we also go further than that and say it's got to be a safe place to live. It's got to be an ample environment for people to grow and thrive, and further, a place where people have opportunities for improvement, whether it be education or economic improvement or access to good transportation. All of those things to us becomes part of the affordable housing description.
Low income also means people that don't earn very much money. That seems pretty obvious. The question I might have is, what would be the wages of farm workers who might be possible tenants? And how does that work? Because are they farming all year round or just part of the year? Can you talk a little bit about what the life of a farm worker might be?
Yeah, there's actually been some improvement over the years in farm worker wages, and I think that's been largely in recent years a question of supply and demand. Agricultural interests are finding it harder and harder to attract particularly domestic farm workers. And much of the farm work is being done by undocumented workers, largely from Mexico and Central America. But low income, a farm worker family, what we see typically is one spouse that may work 10 to 12 months per year, sometimes for a single agricultural entity, sometimes seasonally at several different places, and maybe one packing house. You may have field work plus packing house in certain times of the year. And we're seeing incomes that range from about $18,000 per year for that kind of relatively full-time work to upwards of in the high 20, 26, $28,000 a year. And then we often see a second family member, whether it be a spouse or domestic partner or an older child, also adding to the income of the household. So it's not unusual for us to see incomes between $15,000 to $18,000 at the low end, to the mid 30s to $35,000 to $38,000, which doesn't buy much in the housing market in California these days, because we have rising rents, rising costs of homes, and relatively stilted and incomes for farm workers.
And so I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the area in which you work of the Central Valley, what life is like. I visited there in the spring, and it was spectacularly beautiful. There was snow on the Sierra Mountains. The orchards were in full blossom. It was just absolutely glorious. I realized that, that was a snapshot of time. Life is not always like that. Before we started the call, you were talking about what the temperature is today. We're recording this on June 30th, and you were saying it was about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably pretty close to 40 centigrade. I'm not sure exactly. Anyway, so I wonder if you could talk about what life is like, in the non-spring days in which someone might be visiting.
Sure. Yeah, essentially, the San Joaquin Valley is an irrigated desert. And so we have the Sierras to our east, and we have a coastal range to our west before you get to the part of California most people hear about or see in Hollywood movies. And so the vast Central Valley depends largely on irrigated lands for its agricultural efforts. And it is really in many ways the breadbasket of the country. And I've seen estimates of the farm workers in the United States anywhere between a low of maybe 32% of the farm workers to a high of close to 60% of the farm workers in the United States actually work in the San Joaquin Valley of California. And that includes all of the other states. But there is a real interesting sort of tale of two cities living in the valley, because as rich an agricultural region as we actually have several significantly sized cities. The city of Fresno is over 600,000 people. The city of Bakersfield is now over 400,000 people, as is the city of Modesto. And the city of Visalia is 145,000 people these days. So we have this, but you go literally 2 miles out of the city limits and you have these vast agricultural fields, anywhere from row crops to trees such as almonds and pistachios, to walnuts, to the citrus belt along the foothills. And so it's really a combination of some rural poverty juxtaposed with some fairly significant urban development in some very concentrated pockets. But overall, our demographics have income data that rival places like Appalachia or the Rio Grande Valley in southern Texas, which are very poor areas of the country.
That's so interesting. I'm wondering why you live in the Central Valley. I don't know if you were born here, but tell me a little bit about what it's like to live there just as a resident.
Yeah, actually, I found my way here as a Vista volunteer, which is a domestic Peace Corps type program that was prevalent for people who wanted to do something when they got out of college in the 1980s when I graduated. That's how I found my way out here. I'm a displaced Easterner from New Jersey, of all places. And I fell in love with the work and the people here. I don't think there's a more resilient group of folks that I've ever met than Latino farm workers in the San Joaquin Valley, willing to go to any lengths to work and make life better for their next generation, whether it's through improving their housing opportunities, improving their employment opportunities, their educational opportunities. And I just really fell in love with the work of self-help enterprises, but also the people that we serve. And I ended up marrying a local girl, and pretty much this is where I'm stuck, and this is where my family lives. And it is a nice place to raise a family. Also, I would quickly say that it's not the fast-paced urban environment, but it's also improving and changing in some ways.
I'd just like to make a comment on what you said about the dignity of farm workers. Very early on, when I was talking with your staff about this competition and the possibility of working with self-help, I was so struck with the respect and dignity you had for the clients and the people that you're working with. And I had a lot of awe and respect for that myself. So I just want to sort of make that comment as well, that there is in America and many places in this country, and I will just say this, racism in places where people are not treated well. And I felt like there was just great respect that you offered to your clients and the people that you work with. And so I just want to make that commentary because I believe the population of Visalia is about around 50% white and around 50% Latino, Hispanic, then with a handful of other people. So it's a different population than other communities around America, which are predominantly one particular race. So there's a level of integration and respect for which I saw both with your staff and with the other people I met within Visalia, for the people who live there.
Yeah, and I think it's one way to describe that. One of our core values is that we work with rather than for these folks, and really that goes through the fabric of everything that we do with the folks that we don't consider ourselves providing services as much as working side by side with them to improve their lives.
I wanted to ask you what this building is behind you.
Yeah.
And maybe you could tell us a little bit about, it looks like a housing units, but maybe around a big green, I'm not sure.
Certainly. Yeah, it certainly is. This is actually a farm labor housing project. You have to work in agricultural labor to live in it. It is a rental project of 48 units of rental housing in Lamont, California, which is southeast of Bakersfield, about 15 miles. And it is a beautiful project. That's actually the common area in the project that has a great gazebo and place for barbecues and place, as you can see, for kids to kick a soccer ball around. But the housing units themselves are fourplexes. There's 12 of them, and people. It's the best housing that virtually every one of them enters in their lives when they get there. And it is affordable to them because they're not going to pay more than 30% of their income, regardless of who they are. But it is all farm worker housing. So I love that picture because people, even our peers in California that do affordable housing in urban areas and coastal areas go, wow, what's that? And, well, that's where farm workers live when we work with them.
And I think that is proof of the respect that you have for the people that you work.
I will note the light-colored, cool roof as well. So and this project's about 11 years old. So we've been trying to do energy improvements for some time.
Yeah, and we've all learned a lot more. So I think that we would expect that entries to the competition would not look exactly like this, but it gives you a sense of what the scale is within that community. And I'll just say that over Tom's right shoulder is probably a bougainvillea, that bright red flower that you see there, which is just all over California. It grows almost wild,
Yes.
which can be considered quite exotic in other places around the world.
Right.
Tom, I've so enjoyed our time together. I wanted to give you just a minute to say anything else you might want to about the value of zero net energy buildings, the value of the community, farm workers, anything else you might want to tell us about.
Yeah, I think the thing I'd want to add is that we want our projects to be sustainable, resilient, just like the people who live in them, because really at the heart of the farm worker community that we work with is a just abiding resilience. They've often been through incredible hardships, whether it's traveling to get to a place that they can provide for their family, in some cases, or generational poverty or struggle to survive. And so they are incredibly resilient people. We want the buildings they live in to reflect that. We want to enhance their opportunities to grow and thrive. And to us, that's part of building resilient buildings and projects. So we really look forward to ideas that folks have where we can certainly improve upon our models. So we're thrilled to be part of this competition.
Tom, thank you so much for your time. I've learned so much from you, and I think you've given all of the entrants to the competition a real sense of the dignity of the farm worker community that you work with, as well as the opportunities for a more sustainable future for everyone going forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.